We have a class of people represented by the political elites who are in charge of the society, in charge of governance, and have done everything to maintain their grip on power to protect the interest of their class. So the youth has to find its bearing. They have to recognize themselves as members of the class that has been impoverished, by the decisions of the elite class, not necessarily as demography, as age per se, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So we have to build sort of a broad class base to challenge the domination of the elite class.
Yeah, welcome back to the second segment of Just Africa. And of course, you can follow us on all our social media platforms at SOUQ News TV and subscribe to the Just Africa show on our YouTube channel. So millions of young people are speaking up, organizing, innovating, and refusing to be spectators in their own future. From community projects to social movements, from local councils to digital platforms, African youth are stepping into civic life, not waiting for permission. Because when young people are engaged, communities grow stronger. So when their voices are ignored, frustration grows louder. So when civic engagement is intentional, inclusive, and well supported, it doesn't just build leaders, it builds nations. You see? So this episode of Just Africa features Babalola Ayoola. So he is a journalist and a public affairs analyst. And he's with me in the studio. Welcome, Babalola.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. So being a journalist and a public affairs analyst, so how do you see youth engagement in our today's society? Because most time people say, yes, the African continent is the youngest. They have a very vibrant set of youths that are ready to work. But do you really see that the youth are being engaged enough? Are their voices heard?
Well, I would say that, as you rightly mentioned, we have a very significant youth population. As pertaining to their engagement, one would rate it as fair. We have young people coming into politics, and this is a trend that started in not just in 2023, before then, but it was very pronounced in 2023, and we've sort of maintained that energy in some regards, even though you would say that many youths were disappointed with the results of the 2023 general elections. But of course, there's been participation, increased youth participation in politics. We have more youths registering to be members of political parties.
Yeah.
And we also have political parties that are particularly, placing youth at the helms of their affairs and ensuring that they give enough opportunities and create platform for youths to come and discuss their own ideas. I'm speaking about the African Action Congress, whose top brass is basically populated by young people from Oyo State to the capital in Abuja to here in Lagos. Young people, some under 30, some under 35, being state chairmen of political parties, national officers of political party. On the general scene, regarding social engagement, we've also seen that the Nigerian youths have taken charge of the conversation online and offline. They are driving the kind of talks that we have in our social and political space. So, generally, this is something we've always wanted to see. Youth engagement or youth taking charge in that sense is not something that's going to come very in an abrupt way that most people think, because for it to be a society, right, the elders have to be there, the young people have to be there, and there has to be some sort of transitional framework, from the elders to the youth. And the way it happens is by youths stepping in a gradual process to some of these spaces.
But using Nigeria as a case study, many youth still feel left behind. They still feel our voices are not heard. Like you rightly said, for a place to be called a society, they are supposed to, of course, the elderly ones there, the youth and the younger ones, but the youth right now, like the saying goes, the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. Do you really think, with the kind of leadership that we have in Africa, the Uganda president is how many years old?
He's in his 90s.
He's in his 90s,
Yeah.
you get. So now, if you look at African countries, our presidents, our leaders are in their 70s or in their 80s. Uganda having a 90 years old president. Do you really think that the youth are really the leaders of tomorrow? Do you see them becoming the leaders of tomorrow?
The question of youths being leaders of tomorrow obscures the real challenge that's in the governance space in Africa. Take, for instance, the current crop of leaders that we have in Nigeria, and just as you mentioned, Uganda. This is a class thing, not the elders versus the youth thing. So
Okay.
we have a class of people represented by the political elites who are in charge of the society, in charge of governance, and have done everything to maintain their grip on power to protect the interest of their class. So the youth has to find its bearing, they have to recognize themselves as members of the working class, members of the class that has been impoverished, by the decisions of the elite class, not necessarily as a demography, as age per se, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So we have to build sort of a broad class base to challenge the domination of the political class, the elite class. It is this challenge against this rule that can open up spaces for young people as mobilizers, as the agile and the young, in the working class. It can open up spaces for them to then take up leadership positions.
Where can the youth start from?
Well, we've already started.
Because looking at the political parties, it is not going to be easy for the youth to break in, whether they're non-political parties or not. It is not going to be easy. So where do you think they need to start from, taking up leadership roles?
Again, we've already started. It's not cut in stone, but we already have people contributing to conversations. We have young people joining political parties. We have young people taking up. Just take, for instance, organizations like ASOUQ, like Association of Nurses and Midwives. We have young people who are new in the profession, positioning themselves, right, to be voices of reckon in these spaces, to sort of challenge the status quo and build rapport for a new order.
Okay.
But again, it goes back to our political engagement, our enlightenment, our own commitment to deepening our social understanding of the issues that confront us, right? And our ability to build a broad base. I don't think that from the NSAS till the 2023 election and up until now, we've not per se had a youth organization, popular youth organization and movement born out of those struggles or those experiences. This is because some of us young people are also very guilty of the things that we accuse the elders, of. We are closed-minded, we are not open to debates, we are arrogant, and all of these factors are just there. We cannot even collaborate, within ourselves to have a united front or a united position. And we also have the issue of inducements. We have members of the political and elite class who continually find collaborators among young people. So they induce them with money. Some of them, they give them special assistance.
So you feel that the youth have sold their conscience?
No, I don't think the youth have sold their conscience in that way.
Okay.
I'm just saying that these are some of the things that have hindered us, really, really building a broad base that is youthful in that sense.
Now, if the youth cannot build a very good system right now on their own, looking at the way the current leaders are, because they always say that your followers tend to follow your steps. You keep doing this, the youth are doing this, then how do we have a sane society? If the leaders are passing on what they are passing on to the current youth, when these will now become leaders, what will they pass to the next generation?
I think it was Fanon who said that every generation must discover its purpose, whether to fulfill or to betray it, paraphrasing now. So the youth class or the youth demography, as you see, is a reflection of the general sociocultural space that we have in the country. It's not like Nigerian youths were imported. We were born into the Nigerian culture, raised and groomed into the Nigerian culture. So per se, it's that we will definitely have traits of our elders amongst us, but the onus lies on us to re-philosophize our society, as I often say, to look at what is going wrong, to deepen our understanding and education about these things, and consider it a generational duty to find lasting solutions to the challenges that currently face us.
I like that because the challenges are so much. So I was going through the internet and I saw a video of a young boy fighting his father. Like, when I mean, they were setting blows and they were fighting seriously. And the people were like, the father didn't raise him well. Although I'm the last person that will blame a parent for raising a child. But the community where I grew up, that can't happen back then. The youth leaders would have looked for that boy, tie him to a tree or to a pole and beat the living daylight out of that boy. That was the role the youth were playing back in the days in my own community. They were always out there protecting the younger ones. But these days, it is no longer like that. Would you say it is as a result of social media, or what decadence of culture, or what do you think is actually affecting youth leadership within their peers?
I'll begin by saying that I do have experience of what you just mentioned, of youth leaders coming together to straighten up deviant children or teenagers, or who are rebellious in that sense. And I do have my own perspective about it, given that some of these things are done in a way that's also abusive, just as you have said, tying up children to beat the living daylight out of them. These are not methods that have, really been proven to work. And we can say that because we see that it has been practiced over time in our society, but it still doesn't deter this kind of behaviors. But going back to the larger point is that the current capitalist system that we practice, or that we are aiming to further entrench in our society, thrives on the breakdown of social and community structures. We have an economic system that does not prioritize communal living. People have to go out to hustle their eyes out to be able to, barely make ends meet. And this tells on how the family has largely been degraded over the years. It also tells in how our community and communal practices have been sort of degraded as well over the years. So I think that there is more to this aside from social media or youthful exuberance in that sense. I think we should look at our economy. We should look at our social practices. We have politicians who are making fun of civil servants, mocking them really, because they are not making enough money to compete with them in the so-called luxury that they are able to purchase for their flamboyant living.
Okay, so what do we need to do to encourage that lifestyle? Because if the advent of social media is not helping in building a sane society, do you think it is something that should still be encouraged? Or what do you think we need to do to encourage or to bring back the communal lifestyle that I could look after your child when you're not home? You could discipline my child when my child misbehaves. It's not so anymore, like you said.
Yes.
So what do we need to do? Because these are supposed to be done by youth, actually, not just the elderly. What do we need to do to bring back that life?
Again, it's all connected, quite deeply connected, because you're talking about the kind of social system that we practice. You're talking about the relationship of the middle class and the lower class with the forces of production. In that sense, you are looking at how do we want to treat workers? Do we want them to have lives outside of work? Do we want them to be able, to provide communal and emotional support for their families and neighbors? We have many organizations in Nigeria who, against labor laws, engage their staffs beyond weekdays, beyond normal working hours, many without paid benefits, without health care, without pension or salary, retirement benefits. So all of these things are connected together. In a society where people have to go all out to ensure that they do not suffer, other things will suffer for it, such as the communal bonds and all of these things that we are talking about. So we have to look at re-empowering our people to be able to chase the life that we want. This life that we want has to be created. The life where the parents are at home, the family is together, the community is together. These are the things we sacrifice in pursuit of that escape from the poverty that will befall us if we don't actually run for our lives. So we want to look at all of these things together. We also want to look at our social orientation. We want to look at the desensitization of our people from the socio-cultural and political consequences of our economic lifestyle. We are currently at a moment of reckoning in our national conversation space where people are challenging mainstream narratives about our worship of money. How do we see money? Is everything about money? Our friends from Namibia have also renamed us Abegistan on social media, just caricaturing our culture of making everything revolve around money. So we have to discuss the socio-political consequences of our practices, of our relationship with the economy, our relationship with money, our relationship with work. How do we dignify labor? Do we allow people to find joy and fulfillment in labor? We live in a space where people laugh at civil servants. Even popular musicians or celebrities, politicians, everybody will buy an imported car and say that civil servant no fit buy this one, or civil service money no fit buy this one.
If you're a civil servant,
so are you now saying that the civil servant who closes by 5 p.m. and is back home to the family should not source for other means? If the narratives going on all around is that their lives will not be enough, they will be in perpetual inadequacy if they don't go all out of their way to pursue wealth and luxury. So I think we have to view all those things together as they are connected, talking about delivering good life for our people economically, socially, and of course, sort of a cultural work in how we view these things and how we relate with them.
I'll come back to where you talked about worshiping money. But before then, you talked about people going all out. So before they come back home, that time where you have to bond and teach your children may not be there. Now, my question is, does this happen just in the urban area, or it also happens in the rural areas?
Well, it's very paramount in the urban areas, especially if you live here in Lagos, where maybe you work on the island, you live on the mainland, and there is a whole, traffic that you have to cross going back home. Even if you close by 5 or 6, you don't get home until 8:39, and maybe your kids are asleep when you get home. Again, this is sort of like a gap in the planning of development, right? Because our leaders have not really considered, again, the cultural implications, the implications of their ideas on our communal life and our culture as we know it. So it's also extending largely to the rural areas, because the rural areas used to be sort of subsistently maintained because of their relationship with their environment. We have subsistence farming, we have petty trading, we have all of these things. But in the name of civilization, in quotes, the expansion of urbanization into these areas is degrading the communal life, right, in ways that the promised benefits of the civilization are not able to quickly remedy it. And I'll cite instance. there are places where people can no longer access daily agricultural
Yeah,
jobs
yeah.
like they used to, say, 10, 15 years ago. We have expansion of factories who, by the way, hire expatriates, and even when they want to hire locals, because of the large rate of unemployment and the abundance of cheap labor, they hire the best of the best from the urban centers, urban areas, then relocate them to the rural area. So it's leaving the rural people out of jobs. They are not able to also keep up with the expenses that maintains their life. Fuel, electricity, all of these things are deeply connected. All the while the civilization is degrading their communal life that sustains them from the shock
Yeah.
of the absence of these things. So, yeah, I think it's paramount in the urban area. It's extending to the rural
Rural
areas
areas.
without really having, an alternative to not make the impact very obvious.
Yeah, like I said, I'll bring you back to worship and money. Now, I have seen that the government doesn't even question youth, young people, how they make their money, and even on social media or the mainstream now tells you that if you do not question me while I am suffering, where I got poverty from, you shouldn't question me how I spend my money or how I made my money. Now, that is a trend that is going on. Those in power they live a certain kind of life that they not question. So the youth have decided, okay, if I can afford it, I should also flaunt it. Now, if you're not questioning a youth, a secondary school graduate, where you got your money from, how do you have a society whereby people can be held accountable on how they spend and how they make certain money?
Well, as you said, it's the people in power, and this is very fundamental because the culture of every society is set by the elite class. They are the ones with real social power and political power to determine what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. This is something that falls squarely on our political class, and many of them, I don't want to mention names, but many of them cannot explain the source of their wealth.
Yeah.
Especially in this All Progressives Congress administration or regime since 2015, we have people with questionable character, with baggages of corruption cases and allegations hanging all around their neck, who are still being able to access the highest levels of power in this country. So the leaders are not accountable. We have a president who doesn't really care about destroying the very fabric of this country's democracy.
You think so?
Yes,
I think he actually
to achieve political outcomes. It is very obvious, to everybody that what happened and I'm sorry to just deviate into this. I just want to make my point. Look at what happened in Rivers State. The president suspended a sitting governor as against constitutional provisions to bring about a political outcome. This is clear lack of accountability. Look at what is happening with the tax bill. It was clear. The minority caucus in the House of Representatives said, look, it was clear that the bill that we passed here is different from what some people tried to gazette on behalf of the president. The president and the Senate president, due to the party relationship between them, have tried to sweep this under the carpet and say, oh, okay, we will go back and re-gazette what was passed in the National Assembly. But the truth is that nobody is going to face any sort of consequence for this national embarrassment of treasonable proportions, by the way. So we have an elite class that believes that anything goes. They can get away with anything. So it's the same culture that has now trickled down to the youth, to people with petty authorities, with delegated authorities, the policemen, they kill. Policemen will tell you, I'll kill you and nothing will happen. So it is this same culture that has trickled down. Civil servants will tell you that they would block you from whatever you are trying to achieve in their offices or ministries, and nothing will happen. I could even cite a personal example. There was a time I had issues with an institution in this country, and the leader of that institution was asking me to go to court. And he said, by the time we finish from the High Court, go to the Appeal Court, to the Supreme Court, it might not even be in that position again. and we'll see whose time will be wasted. These are people who are capitalizing on the deficiency of our institutions to make life difficult for the common man, because of course, nothing will happen. So this culture of lack of accountability is not something that really falls on the shoulder of, the Nigerian youth or the Yahoo boy.
Okay.
Not like saying they are not responsible for their actions, but I'm saying it is the elite who set the culture of what is acceptable and what is not.
But I believe that the youth can actually do different somehow in a way. But for time factor, your final word for the youth that is watching out there, how would you can tell them how they can support the little community to help that community develop?
Well, I've always said that young people should get on the streets. They should get more involved in their community. They should solidarize with other young people, join political parties, join youth fronts. Never run away from debates. Deepen your understanding, deepen your education about social issues. Give your opinions. Let people criticize your opinions. Criticize other people's opinions, and don't let it lead into political hatred. Like what we saw in 2023, where people were practically going after themselves on behalf of.
It doesn't have to go.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go that way. So we have to come back and sort of build an engagement culture that prioritizes actually solving our problems rather than putting ourselves in camps.
Thank you very much, Ayoola, for coming on today's show. And I hope you will be available next time.
We'll see.
Yes, a very big thank you to you. Now, the thing is, Africa's future won't be built in silence or on the sidelines. It will be shaped by young people who show up, speak up, and stay engaged, not just during elections, but in everyday community life. Just as our guest says, civic engagement isn't noise, it's nation building in motion. When youth are trusted, equipped, and included, communities don't just grow, they transform. So the question now isn't whether young Africans are ready to lead, but whether our systems are ready to listen. So until next time, this is Just Africa, where the continent's future is not just discussed, but imagined and demanded. I am Omevi Idolo. You can follow us on all our social media platforms at SOUQ News TV and subscribe to the Just Africa show. Thank you for watching.